We're really pleased to have with us Michael Jacobs from NAI, Glickman, Kavago, and Jacobs. And Michael, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So Michael, for our viewers who might not be familiar with your company, maybe a commercial real estate firm, other components to it, maybe you could explain to our viewers what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a full-service commercial real estate firm based here in Worcester. In fact, we're moving downtown. We have about 12 commercial brokers. We have a separate general construction division and a separate property management division. A few years ago, my partners and I started to kick around, as a boutique firm in a somewhat parochial market, how do we get bigger? How do we get better? And so we started to kick around ideas like franchising and all that. And coincidentally, we were approached by NAI Global out of New York. And they were offering up, it's truly a network of like-minded, independently owned commercial real estate firms throughout the world. So we flew to New York to meet with them, hear their presentation, and after a few months, it just seemed like the right thing to do. So in fact, today is 1 year that we are now an NAI licensed firm. So it's been.
So I think when you announced it last year, and part of it was to get the best of both worlds. You've got that local piece and people on the ground here in Central Mass and across Massachusetts and New England, but you also have that networks nationally and beyond.
Well, now a year into it, we truly have an office in Miami, an office in New Jersey, in Denver. And it's funny when you talk to the other owners, they say traditionally when an NAI member calls you, you'll respond quickly. And sure enough, that's how it's been. We really do.
The winter in the Miami office?
We're heading, or Denver.
Well, given that commercial real estate, clearly the economy is moving in the right direction, though maybe not as fast as we all would like. We're seeing a lot of activity, certainly in Worcester and in Central Mass as well. I mean, what's your read? How's it going? Maybe you can give us a sense of what you're dealing with every day and what you're seeing.
Well, it really is a unique time in Worcester. I'm not a Worcesterite by trade. I've been here for about 12 years, never really knew anything about the city before then.
Sometimes someone like yourself gives the best perspective on it because you're not, clouded.
Not jaded, yeah, exactly right. And I've spent my entire time in the retail sector, in the national retail sector. We work with local businesses, but it's mostly the national retail side. And about 8 or 9 years ago, we took on what was first named City Square by Berkeley Investments. And so I said, well, this is going to be a great high-profile project. This is going to be a lot of fun. And just a quick story, the first retailer to come out and tour was a McDonald's rep. And he was a very seasoned veteran guy. He's been in the industry his entire life. And he says, okay, I'll indulge you. Let's hear what you have to say about Worcester, not knowing the history that McDonald's had been downtown.
Right.
So him and I, on a Friday afternoon, we took a walk, Franklin Street, Main Street, the old Front Street. For about an hour, we just walked around talking. And then around 5:20, we were right in front of City Hall. He walked out in the middle of Main Street. He turned to me and he said, I can fire off a gun right now, and we could probably walk back to your car, and we won't be bothered. So I said, why are we talking about firing off a gun? He says, my point is, I'm standing on Main Street, nobody's here. And that's why national retail will not come here. It's driven by residential development, density. So over the last 12 years, obviously, over the last 2 to 3 years mostly, that's really started to unfold. And if you look at the simultaneous private and public investment, it really is something that we won't see again.
Yeah, and that's been the key, and I think that's been the goal and objective, public and private sector, people working together, some of our higher ed partners as well. But how do you build that density in the downtown? And I think we've seen the colleges, Mass College of Pharmacy with Charlie Monahan and the board there, with Quinsigamond Community College, with Becker, Worcester State, moving a few, albeit smaller programs, but very, committed to seeking out opportunities. WPI's campus moving, closer to the north end of Main Street. A lot of things happening, and you get the colleges. You've got 800 units of market rate housing that has been completed, under construction as we speak, and in the pipeline. 400 hotels, same hotel rooms. Completed, under construction as we speak, more on the way. So that density is coming.
It is, and it takes all of it. It really takes the residential density, the Roseland project, the 5 or 6 other projects that 800 units. That's really the impetus to get the retailers to look. We started marketing Hanover, the restaurant building for Hanover, 551 Main, while we're also marketing 145 Roseland, which is 12,000 square feet of street retail right on the corner of Front and Foster. Again, spending 12 years of sending stuff out to all the retailers and saying, no, it's Worcester, no, no, no. I've been surprised over the last 6 months how many people have made the trek to take a look. And now it's become common practice when Boston guys or New York guys come, we just do the same walk. We start at City Hall and just walk down front, up Foster, just to show everybody what's truly underway.
Yeah.
And we're getting good interest.
Right,
for the
and
first
that's,
time.
and that's, that interest, I think, is a great sign that they see the density's real, they see things happening, and,
Correct.
quite frankly, at the Chamber, we're working with firms like yours and others out in Boston, where we're out talking to retailers directly, maybe the smaller scale ones, about these opportunities, because the last thing we want is to have this density and people living in downtown or visiting hotels and not have the retail.
Right, and that will happen. At 145 Front, we only have 12,000 square feet to lease out, but Roseland's made it clear they want retailers that will service their residents first. So that's, we're targeting banks and C-stores and spas, hair salons, and we are getting a lot of interest. And based on the fact that the delivery of that space is probably about this time next year, we'll have 4 to 6 retailers tied in. They'll all be service related to the apartment residents, but they'll also be able to take advantage of this growing daytime population.
Yeah, and that's it, and certainly, we see already, with people getting priced out of Boston, the 128 getting increasingly expensive, with the trains, and now we've got the beginning of what I hope will be a number of nonstop trains between Worcester and Boston. People seeing Worcester as a much more affordable alternative.
Without a doubt. And I met with Roseland at the beginning of this project out in Revere, and they made it painfully clear. These are luxury / market rate apartments, and they will maintain that. They'd rather leave them vacant than have to go down to an affordable price, but that's their agenda. They've been into tertiary markets in the past. They've been able to maintain their business plan, and that's exactly what we need. We need those different tiers of residential development.
And again, having that of the 800 units that are being built, they're all market rate housing.
Yep.
And that gives people with some discretionary income the ability to support the retail.
For sure, and that's all the retail seek.
All right, Michael, we're going to have a chance on October 14th. The Chamber's repurposing the traditional expo. We're calling it the Game Changers event.
Yep.
You have been kind enough to agree to be one of our moderators of or a topic. We're talking about downtown and business districts poised to cash in on the retail revolution.
Right.
And we've talked a little bit about downtown, but what do you see about retail trends, some of Worcester's neighborhood business districts, which have been successful for a long time? What do you see happening there?
Well, as you know, there's a larger scale retail development being proposed along Grove Street, the old bus station. In Worcester, historically, for the retailers that aren't here, a lot of them have never even been here. We're trying to overcome a long-time stigmatism. But we were doing a Chick-fil-A deal on Gold Star Boulevard last year, and we had thrown out that property to the market just for a 7-day period, just to get a feel for, okay, what would be the impact in the retail sector. We had 6 inquiries within the first few days. Now, there's retailers that have never been willing to come to Worcester are now looking at it long and hard. And they would only look at it if it was originally the Gold Star neighborhood,
Right.
But now that's expanding.
Right, Gold Star, Park Ave, and some of the properties coming online.
Right into the downtown.
Yeah, no, it's quite a stretch, and
Yep.
we'll see that. We also, know that there's opportunities kind of for local businesses to grow and expand.
Correct.
You're dealing with, Michael, with a lot of the national retailers, but where do you see any opportunities in terms of the smaller retailers that are looking to maybe grow to the next level?
Well, I think, there's more inventory coming online, and they will get an opportunity. Some of these national retail developers actually are looking for some level of local business. So we will approach, as at 145 Front, I'm approaching some of the local businesses, some of the long-standing, strong credit type guys, to welcome them aboard. And that's what I think most of the developers are doing.
Great. Well, we'll be talking more a little bit on October 14th at the Game Changers event, and we're excited that you're going to be part of that panel called Downtown Poised to Cash In and Retail Revolution. It's going to be a great day. We've got Cliff Rucker, the owner of the new hockey team, and the rinks, and a couple new buildings downtown, who's going to be a keynote speaker at lunch, and going to recognize some of the game changers who've made a difference in reshaping the city as well.